What's up guys, Zach here from MMOBomb.com with a first look for the highly anticipated Korean MMO ARPG Lost Ark. Yes, it has been over 3 years since I brought you a glimpse at this game, which at the time was in the Korean beta, and we were all wondering, will it come west? Well, it has, and we now have our own version. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Starting us off with the character creation, we won't spend too much time here as it is quite standard fare and nowhere near say a Black Desert Online, but it is sufficient. What we will spend a tad more time on is the class selection, which is the meat and potatoes. Right now we have 15 subclasses available, but Zach, what about actual classes, you say? Well, in Lost Ark, that really only matters for the first 5 minutes, as your subclass is essentially what is considered the classes of Lost Ark. Once you choose one of the handful of base classes, you then enter a part in the game's opening prologue where you get to test the subclasses, each of which vary wildly. Once you choose your subclass, there's no turning back, as you can't respec these. That's why throughout the rest of this video, I will continue to call subclasses just classes for simplicity's sake, because that's what they are. That's what people are going to refer to. People are going to say I'm a Paladin, or they're going to say that you're a Berserker or you're a Gun Lancer. They're not going to say you're a Warrior, a Mage, or whatever that is. They're going to say your subclass. The one negative here is that as of right now, some classes are gender locked though. But there is plans by Smilegate to fix this over time. And that really doesn't bother me, quite honestly. I'm not one of those people who, has to play the gender that I am, but I know that it is a hot topic, and I know that it may bother some of you, so I did want to bring that up just for your awareness. As for what classes we have available in our version, we have the following: Bard, Paladin, Berserker, Gunlancer, Striker, War Dancer, Scrapper, Soulfist, Gunslinger, Artillerist, Deadeye, Sharpshooter, Sorcerer, Shadowhunter, and of course the Deathblade. That's a lot of classes, each of which, as mentioned previously, are quite different from each other. As a Bard, you'll have a fairly standard but important range support role, where as a Paladin, you'll support your group in the trenches. As a Berserker, you'll spin to win, as you'll see my friend doing on the screen throughout this video. But as an Artillerist, you will epitomize America's love for guns. As a Striker, your fists will be your brains, whereas a Soulfist, your fists will be fisting things more methodically. There's a class for everyone here, and quite frankly, multiple, as I know I'll have numerous alts in this game, with the first being the Sorceress. The cool thing is there's a couple power passes you can unlock by just playing the game that allow you to boost different characters up to level 50, so you're not going to have too much of a hard time being able to roll some alts. On top of that, there's some classes that launched in other versions of the game that we currently don't have. For example, the Trickster, or at least that's one way I've heard it called, that does damage with cards. There's also a Big Hammer class. The name is escaping me, but you probably would recognize it from the trailers. And then there's also the Summoner as well. There's also additional planned classes that are coming in the future. For example, the Painter that was just announced, and there's some others as well. And Smilegate's mentioned that they want to bring us a new class every few months or so. So you're not going to have a short supply of classes moving forward in Lost Ark. And so overall, A+ for class diversity here. And throughout this video, you'll see me playing as a Paladin, and as I mentioned earlier, my friend as a Berserker as well. Alright, well, you can have all the classes that you want, but if there's no gameplay there, then, you just have classes. So once you choose your class, you'll be thrown into a prologue, which will take you on a short adventure to teach you the basics. And while I get why they shortened this prologue, as someone who's played the game before they did, and there was the personalized based class areas that you got to be in, I wish they would have kept the old ones. They just had a bit more personality, but instead now we have a uniform prologue that everyone goes through, but it's just a minor gripe. It's a gripe nonetheless, of course, but I did want to bring that up because it has bothered me a little bit. Another thing that you'll notice throughout the early levels is that the game doesn't deviate from the standard MMO fare questing. You'll kill, you'll gather, you'll fetch, you'll do a bunch of the standard stuff, and it doesn't really apologize for it. What is different though is how great the combat feels in this game. And it just takes the standard ARPG combat system to a whole new level through having a lot of meaningful skills, skill diversity, a focus on anticipation and placement. I mean, yeah, you could say other ARPGs have skills, and I'll grant you that, but Lost Ark, it just feels a lot more needed to use them. Where like in a Path of Exile, you can have a couple skills, but you're really just mashing one button. In Diablo, you have multiple skills, but you might just be mashing a couple buttons. Lost Ark, you're using every single one of your skills. It's a really, really cool combat system, and there's so much game feel here that every hit just feels so impactful. And the particle effects, oh my lord, the particle effects. It's lovely. It's such a great combat system. That is just a mix between Diablo and Final Fantasy XIV, because you're going to be doing a lot of smashing and you're going to be doing a lot of dancing in Lost Ark. In respect to smashing, you'll be introduced to the Rapport system fairly early on. This is somewhat of a romance system where you give gifts, you sing songs, you emotes, and do quests for certain NPCs for rewards. A fairly neat addition that just adds to the horizontally vertical progression system that this game has. And yes, I could say omnidirectional, but horizontally vertical paints the picture a bit better in my opinion. Painting a picture, yes, graphics. Let's go ahead and transition to graphics real quick. Lost Ark is one of the better remaining Unreal Engine 3 games out there in terms of graphics, with their great usage of camera movement and a lot of over-the-top effects. As you level up further, more dungeons will unlock, and they have normal and hard difficulties, so these dungeons are really worth doing. They're not all relation to the main quest, but they are very entertaining rides that prep you for what you can expect in the endgame. They teach you about smashing and dancing, so that way you can learn, not to overcommit, because you may have to get out of a telegraph or do some other mechanics. It teaches you the flow of the game. And the cool thing is they've actually balanced a lot of this game in terms of how everything hits, and like how hard it hits, and how much HP it has. So in the past, if you played the Russian version, you probably realized, wow, I'm just killing stuff in 2 shots. This is really easy. Where now it's actually balanced in a way where you're gonna see me almost die a couple times because of the balancing that they did. It's a lot more challenging and fun as a result. On top of this, sailing will open up for you at level 35-ish, which unlocks a massive slew of content, including those that are more gathering type, shipwreck exploration, island exploration, and more. I could talk for hours just about the sailing portion of this game because it's so extensive, but just know there's a lot to do and a lot of progression found within it. Some of it that will help you with your vertical progression, some of it that will help you with your horizontal progression, like building out your player housing. A good example of this is just the fact that there's close to 100 islands that you can explore, each of which that have their own separate themes, story, and more. You'll find islands where it's like a survival horror experience. And then sometimes you'll go to a more stealthy island where you have to stealth around. And then sometimes you'll go to a island where you transform as a panda. And there's a lot of other different variations of these islands out there. They're just so extensive. And it's going to benefit your vertical progression as well as what I mentioned, your horizontal as well. Like I said, horizontally vertical is what this game is. It's what a lot of games try to be, but fail because they don't have enough in the horizontal or they don't have enough in the vertical, so it doesn't feel like an actual theme park. Before we get into gear progression and what to expect at Endgame, let's first touch on the game's story. Story in Lost Ark is worth listening to, but it is average. You're not gonna have a grand epic here like in Final Fantasy XIV. It's serviceable to build the world and provide you some context to your activities, but you're not gonna come away from it saying, wow, I thought this was amazing. You're just gonna be like, okay, it's there. It is what it is. Where the game opens up tremendously, though, as I mentioned, or rather hinted to previously, is at Endgame, right? While it does open up quite a lot once sailing is introduced, a plethora of more content and progression systems unlock once you hit 50. while I can't really speak to how it works in our version, as you're going to see on the screen, I'm not level 50 yet. The gear progression system is fairly standard in that you collect materials through specific activities and use it to enhance your gear. As you enhance your gear, it gets more difficult as the odds decrease. And the good news is it's not like BDO, aka Black Desert Online, for those of you who are not aware, where the gear destroys or degrades in meaningful ways. The materials in Lost Ark just go poof here. It's not like BDO. It's not an extreme enhancement system. It's kind of on the border of what I deem okay. Like I said, it's not my favorite, but it's expected from a Korean game, and I'm just happy they didn't take it one step further, which would have made me enjoy the game one step less. There's also other character progression systems like obtaining skill points, getting engravings which drastically alter your playstyle, gems to enhance your skills, cards that provide extra stats, standard gathering and crafting systems, along with being able to level your roster, which is your total level of all your characters combined, and that provides stats as well. It's kind of like a Paragon system. On top of that, there's a lot of collectible progression systems in the game too. I've really only actually interacted with Makoko seeds, but part of these collectibles are island hearts as well, which can be obtained through completing island activities. The Makoko seeds, as I mentioned previously, which are hidden throughout the world in very weird spots sometimes. Like, sometimes you have to go off the map to even obtain these things, or you have to smash a barrier for 30 minutes to try and break it to be able to collect 3 of them. It's pretty wild. If you're a collector, you're going to run wild in Lost Ark. There's also the Stronghold player housing system, which you can create mini games in. You can transfer knowledge between one character to another to essentially level and alt, etc. There's just a lot of progression systems. It's all around in Lost Ark, and it's going to be very overwhelming for you. But if you don't rush it and you take your time, the sea is so deep, and it's going to be so fun for you to delve into, as it has been for me. Because yeah, I'm overwhelmed. I mean, I played up to Endgame and played a bit of the Endgame in the Russian server, and I'm still overwhelmed about how much I have to do in this game. But what that means for me as someone who usually plays an MMO and then jumps ship within a month is that I'm going to be here probably for at least a few months, if not longer, which will be the first time I've done that with an MMO in a decade, which is just jaw-dropping to me. That's just how much content is here and how fun it is to go through. Okay, Zach, but those are just the progression systems. How do we progress them? Well, there's a lot of different things. You know, there's the sailing aspect that can help you progress, but also at endgame, you're going to have dailies, you're going to have abyss dungeons, which are similar to what you completed throughout leveling, just more difficult. Chaos dungeons, which are wave-based. Towers, which you can clear a floor for rewards and move on as it progressively gets more difficult. We have 2 of those with 50 floors each. World bosses, which are just world bosses like you would see in any game, and they actually have a decent bit of mechanics too. They could be quite difficult. Cube dungeons, world events, and coming soon we're also going to have Legion raids, which are really the multi-phase epics that are one of the key highlights of Lost Ark. If you've seen raiding videos in Lost Ark, you've probably seen one. They're absolutely bonkers and insane, and they're just a treat. So yeah, it's going to be fun once we get our hands on a Legion raid. On top of that, you have some PvP goodness as well. The competitive PvP is 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3, all of which is equalized, meaning that gear does not matter. Hallelujah. I haven't touched on this content yet myself, but from what I have seen and done research on, it looks like a fantastic time, and I cannot wait to check it out. There is also open PvP islands as well that you'll be able to explore and delve into. Those I haven't done a ton of research on. You know, this is a first look. It's not a comprehensive review. So I'm going to assume, don't hold me to it, that on the PvP islands, it's not equalized. But that's not competitive PvP, right? That's just open world PvP. So yeah, if you want to do competitive PvP, that's equalized. Everything else, I'm not sure. Quite honestly, I'm just being real. Okay. All this is great, but what about the cash shop? Well, Lost Ark's cash shop is summarized like this, at least in my view. A pay-to-skip mechanism that is not required. That last part is important to many, and I want to emphasize it that it's not required, but the first part still may turn off some folks that it's even possible. In the shop, you can buy various things like cosmetics, pets, card packs, and even gold. That gold can then be used to turn around and buy materials off the auction house, which is where the pay to skip comes in. Theoretically, someone could upgrade their gear solely through swiping, thus skipping the need to farm materials to the game's content. This to me would be an issue if the game wasn't as well paced as it is, because usually when you hear about this type of thing, the game is not well paced, so you feel the need that you have to do that. But the good news is, from my experience and from a lot of creators' experience, that Lost Ark is so well paced that you really don't need to even look at the shop. It's kind of one of those things too where, as I mentioned previously, PvP is equalized, so it's not like they're able to, a whale is not able to be rank 1 in PvP by dropping millions of dollars on the game. They just aren't. They actually have to compete on a level playing field, and let's be honest, those types of people can't do that. Their power is their plastic. Some of that plastic is pretty heavy, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, it's still plastic, right? So while everyone has different views on monetization, I wanted to really hone in on the fact that what you get with Lost Ark is equalized PvP, equalized competitive PvP, with the ability to skip or speed up PvE progression if you wish to swipe. But it is not required. It is what it is. I mean, like I said, cash shops are always the very controversial subject. My job is not to tell you what you want to do, what you like, I'm not gonna tell you what to think. I'm just gonna give you the tools to understand what's there so you can make up your mind if that's fine with you or not. I know for myself, I spent $100 on the game with the Founders Pack because I played a lot of the Russian version. I love the game. I wanted to support the development of said game. Really, in conclusion here, the shop to me is okay, but that's for you to decide whether or not it's okay with you. In conclusion, when it comes to the entire game, Lost Ark is a game that I have anticipated, as you all know, for a very long time to come to the West. And our version, in my view, has delivered one of the best versions of the game. You know, obviously the Korean version has its pros since it's caught up on the content, but I think we are definitely above the Russian version. Just in terms of the westernization that Amazon has collaborated with Smilegate on, it's really awesome to see that we finally have not only a fun new MMO ARPG to play, but we also had an actual westernized version of a Korean game, not a westernized, poorly translated version, an actual one that's catered to us in a lot of different ways. And I cannot wait to be playing this game for the foreseeable future. As I mentioned, usually I'm a 1 or 2 month and dump type person when it comes to MMOs. This one I see myself playing a lot more than just a couple months because there's so much here. It's unbelievable. Whether or not you will enjoy this game, though, as I mentioned in the prior bits, it really depends on if you are a fan of ARPGs. If you don't like top-down style combat or Diablo or Path of Exile or anything like that, you're probably not gonna like Lost Ark. But you might still want to check it out just to see. You might like it. It just depends. Your tolerance also for enhancement systems is going to come into play here too. I mean, if you really do not like enhancement systems that get progressively more difficult over time, you probably will get turned off by Lost Ark's Endgame. It's just as simple as that. And then also your views on monetization as well. We discussed a lot about monetization because it's important. So depending on your views about monetization, that could be a deal breaker for you too. But the best part is, as I keep mentioning, the game is free. So even if you're just a tiny bit interested, it's not going to cost you a dime to hop in. It's going to cost you a little bit of time to download and a little bit of time for you to play the game. What doesn't cost you anything is smacking that like button. If you enjoyed the video, of course, and also, subscribing for more MMOBomb, that's cool too. Our articles are also free, so be sure to check them out on MMOBomb.com. But as for myself, signing out until next time, my name is Zach, and I'll catch you all next time.